Chapter 21 Items in the Dungeon. The plan for items support. With our progression of dangerous monsters, we've sort of left our player behind. The monsters grow ever stronger, but there's no way the player can grow stronger to keep up. We'll first look at ways to increase the player's power. One approach we'll take is to offer items the player can apply. We will scatter sundry items around the dungeon for the player to find, pick up, and use. Some items might be useless, some may be dangerous, and some might be useful in obvious or less obvious ways. Our first items will be weapons to hit harder and armor to reduce the damage we take. Holding items in the model. What properties do we need to know about an item? As we're going to show them in the dungeon, we'll need a glyph. We intend to have items of different strength, so we'll also note a dungeon level for each item to decide its general power range. In the near future, we intend to wear some of the items. To that end, we'll mark our items with a slot enumeration, which says how you can wear the item. So we create 21 slot.ts with an enumeration that looks like this. With those three properties, the object class for our game model items will first start out to look like this, the 21 obj.ts. And now we can add it to the 07 map cell ts like this. The change we make here to glyph 21 makes it so any objects present are included when drawing the dungeon. We must of course update draw map to use glyph 21. We will extend the dungeon map and the dungeon map interface with these methods so that we may add objects. And this constitutes a basic tooling to handle objects. But we don't have any objects in the game yet. Defining the items. Our builders will have to scatter items throughout our dungeon map somehow. This raises questions of how to manage the properties of items. One approach might be to instantiate them directly as instances, sort of hard-coding the items. Another approach might involve holding a table of item descriptions and properties, which we will consult either when we spawn the objects or when we try to access the properties of an item. And with things like, it's called a longsword, it hits for 4 damage, and it weighs 2 pounds. Our approach will mimic this latter recipe approach. This way, we may consult those item recipes or recipes repeatedly as we generate items to distribute around the dungeon. We'll need to add some glyphs for items, for example these, which we put into glyph, and of course also into the glyph info class. For the recipes, we could do something like this, which we put in the file 21 obj types. A glyph and a slot, and then a table of objects. At this early stage, the object type interface is an extremely parsimonious effort. It boils down to mentioning which of our glyphs represent items, for example the dagger item and the shield item, and which slot they relate to. However, we will eventually extend object type interface with further properties, and by then it will be more useful, allowing us to detail many facets of our items and what they can be used for. To use object types to get stuff into our builder, we will extend it with a few helpers. We'd like it to have the following methods. It should be able to add a random item to a given map if we provide it with the point it should place it at. We'll call this method addRandomObject for level. This is the method our builder will use to place items. Our map already knows how to add an object to map, So we can implement add random object for level if we make a function that can create random items but not place them. We'll have random level object, which is that create function. It will create a random item for a given level, that is, of a given level strength. It will do three things. First, it will pick a random object type index. Second, it will look up the object template for that index. And lastly, it will create the actual object instance based on that template. We'll use the method getTemplate to look up the template for an index. In theory, we could just index the object types array directly, but we like to protect such a dynamic random lookup to catch if we by accident attempt to look up a non-existing template or something, for example the index -1. Then we will have makeTemplate object, which is the separate helper we use to create the templated object instance. It does one extra little thing. It will spice up the suggested level with a small chance to get higher levels. And lastly, we'll also make add object type to map, which will add specific kinds of objects instead of random items. So we will extend object types class with these 6 helpers. The index for glyph that we need, the add object type to map, the add random object for level, create a random level object, and the make a template object, and the getTemplate. To test all this out, we'll clone the 20 builder 2i into 21 builder 2j. We can then extend the builder with this method add items. And that method we will call inside make level, just before where we call add mobs to level. From here on, it will now be possible to run our items attempt with the runner index21 items that looks like this. To sense the items, to aid the feeling that these objects are present in the dungeon, we will add a describing flash message to our game screen. Whenever our player steps over an item, we'll display a temporary message like shield is here. First, we'll extend our object class to have a description property. That looks like this. To implement the flash message mechanism, we modify o9move command to call the flash if item whenever it moves the player. It will do it like this. And the flash if item method will check whether the new tile contains an object. If so, we emit the flash message. And this completes our efforts in this chapter. We've realized a kind of museum where you can walk around and observe items, but you're not allowed to touch or interact with them. Which may be reasonable for now, given that these items don't really yet have any qualities.